She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. She'll put the pressure in your fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes in and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical love, and I try to find a strength.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another Coffee and Crime Time. And this one is kind of crazy. I know I always say like this one's crazy. This one's crazy. It's got it all. Murder, intrigue, insurance plots. It's got all the makings of a great Agatha Christie novel, which is ironic considering one of the people involved in this case considers herself to be quite the writer. So get your coffee, put your feet up, tune the outside world out, and let's talk about the murder of Daniel Brophy. First, though, I want to have a word from our sponsor, and our sponsor today is Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a new kind of documentary streaming service. They have over 2,000 documentary movies and series, and they add more every single week. It's Magellan TV's mission to bring you the finest documentaries from around the world. They believe in the power of telling real stories that have defined the human experience and point the way to the future. They call it television worth watching. And I know you guys feel the same way. You feel the thrill of a great story, well told. You crave the powerful drama of history, the excitement of scientific discovery, and the awe-inspiring beauty of the natural world. We all know that television should be both entertaining and smart. That's why Magellan TV continues to scour the globe for documentaries with the most dramatic imagery, most cutting-edge subjects, and the authentic insight from the world's top historians, scientists, and explorers. Magellan TV was built by documentary filmmakers who share your passion for gripping true stories. So whether you're passionate about history, science, nature, crime, or really anything else, join us and experience Magellan TV. Magellan TV is available anytime, anywhere. You can watch it on your phone, your tablet, Roku, Apple TV. Stream it right from your phone to your TV. You don't ever have to be without amazing documentaries anywhere you go, anywhere you find yourself. On that note, I have an amazing documentary, a really must-watch from Magellan TV, and I know a lot of you have already signed up for Magellan TV. Some of you are considering it, and if you do, you need to watch this. It's called The Last Confession of the Cannibal, and it's about a man named Alexander Pierce, who was an Irish convict, and he was transported to a penal colony in Tasmania for 7 years for theft. He escaped from prison several times. During one of these escapes, he allegedly became a cannibal, murdering his companions one by one. In another escape with one companion, he allegedly killed him and ate him in pieces. He was eventually captured and was hanged and dissected in Hobart for murder.
Each morning we set off hoping the day would bring us into sight of Jericho. On the 4th day our provisions ran out. On the 8th day we came to the side of a large mountain. We still had axes, a knife and flint, but nothing to eat. All the way we'd seen no game nor savages. The place was empty. By now, we were in a weak state. All we had to eat was our leather, so we boiled strips of it in a pot.
In The Last Confession of the Cannibal, you can experience one man's hell on earth and understand how he endured the unimaginable by doing the unthinkable. Chained to a wall in the darkness of a cell and awaiting execution, Alexander Pierce confesses his sins. It's so good, guys. I mean, it's a little bit under an hour, and I was just enthralled and gripped by it the entire time. It felt like it passed in 10 minutes. If you are interested in joining me and many others on this channel and trying Magellan TV out, go in the description box. There's a link, and if you click that link, Magellan TV is going to give you a 1-month free subscription. It's a trial subscription, so you are not tied into anything. You can cancel at any time after that 1 month, or even before if you wanted, but I don't think you're going to want to. There's so many amazing documentary movies and series on Magellan TV. 1 month is not enough, even in quarantine. Okay, let's get started on the video. On June 2nd, 2018, students at the Oregon Culinary Institute in Portland found the body of their beloved teacher, Chef Daniel Brophy, covered in blood. He'd been shot twice, once in the chest and once in the back. Both bullets had pierced his heart. Brophy had arrived and disarmed the alarm at 7:30 a.m., and another colleague had arrived about 10 minutes after him, but she didn't open the classroom door for students until 8 a.m. Brophy was found in the back kitchen, bleeding, but still alive, barely. By the time the paramedics and his wife of 27 years arrived, he was gone. No one could make sense of such a senseless attack. It didn't appear to have been a robbery, since nothing was missing, and Brophy still had possession of his wallet, cell phone, and keys. There was also no sign of forced entry or a struggle. The police asked his wife Nancy if her husband had any enemies or someone who would want to see him dead, but she couldn't figure it out. Her husband was well loved by his students and the community. He'd been working at the Institute since 2006, and he was well known to be friendly and kind with this kind of dark but funny sense of humor. A few days later, Nancy Brophy held a candlelight vigil for Dan so friends and students could come and remember him. The day before, she had posted on Facebook that as much as she appreciated well wishes from friends, she needed a few days to process everything before she was willing to take calls. And she had just lost her best friend after all. It would take some time for this to sink in. During the vigil, Nancy made a moving speech about her husband, saying he loved teaching, he loved mushrooms, and he loved family. Dan was one of the very few people I've known that knew exactly what he wanted in life and loved doing it. It was a lovely speech, and of course it was. Of course it would be. Nancy was good with words. Writing was what she did for a living. Originally from Wichita, Texas, Nancy Brophy was already calling herself a romantic suspense writer while she was attending the University of Houston, where she majored in economics. According to PortlandMonthly.com, she wrote lusty, winding novels about women in trouble and the men who came to their rescue. She wasn't very successful at it, though. The books are self-published, littered with typos, run-on sentences. She does a lot of just talking, writing a lot, using 40 words where she could have used 10 to make her point, kind of like Stephen King, but not as effectively. But one of her pieces of work has become very popular since the death of her husband. In 2011, she wrote a blog post titled How to Murder Your Husband, and it's supposed to be fiction, but it sounds more like an autobiographical account of her life and her personal thoughts. She wrote, "As a romantic suspense writer, I spent a lot of time thinking about murder and police procedure. After all, if the murder is supposed to set me free, I certainly don't want to spend any time in jail. And let me say clearly, for the record, I don't like jumpsuits, and orange isn't my color." She then discusses the different ways you might carry out the murder of one's husband. Guns, loud, messy, require some skill. Knives, really personal and close up, blood everywhere. Ew. Nancy also outlines why a crime of passion will get you caught. She says most of the time there is a trail that leads directly to you. Each type of murder leaves clues. A crime of passion does not look like a stranger was involved. But what are the motives, right? What are the reasons you might want to get your husband out of the picture? According to Nancy, there's a few. She wrote, quote, "Maybe he's cheating. Maybe you're in love with someone else. And then there's always the money. Divorce is expensive. And do you really want to split your possessions? Or if you married for money, aren't you entitled to all of it? The drawback is the police aren't stupid. They're looking at you first." Nancy told the police that she was home when she learned her husband had been shot, but she was caught on surveillance camera driving her Toyota minivan west on Jefferson Street, right in front of the culinary school at 7:08 that morning, and again at 7:28 that morning. And Dan disarmed the alarm at 7:21, and he was found by his students at 8 a.m. 3 days after he was killed, Nancy Brophy called a detective at the Portland Police Bureau asking for a letter confirming that she wasn't a suspect. And why would she need such a letter? Well, she was the beneficiary of Dan's life insurance, and the insurance company wanted assurance that she was not responsible for his death. Investigators looked into this life insurance policy for $40,000, which isn't a huge policy, certainly not enough to kill someone for, right? But then they discovered that Daniel Brophy had more than one insurance policy in his name, and Nancy was the beneficiary for all of them, in total $350,000, plus Dan's estate, which included a house in Beaverton that he had once been the sole owner of, but transferred the deed to both his and Nancy's name in 2017, and that estate was worth $375,000. The bullets recovered from Dan's body had been shot from a Glock 9mm handgun, and Nancy had recently purchased such a gun. But when it was taken and looked at, it was determined that it couldn't have been the murder weapon. Nancy claimed the gun had never been used by her or her husband since being bought. And when they looked at this gun, they realized, it doesn't appear that this gun has ever been shot. But then the police found out something else. Going through Nancy's internet history, they discovered that she'd purchased additional gun parts online before her husband's death. What it seems she did was swap out parts in the Glock to mislead investigators into thinking a different gun had been used. This is really sad because Dan Brophy, from what I learned about him from reading and hearing, accounts from people who knew him, he was an interesting, complicated, multi-dimensional man who will be very missed by everyone who knew him, besides his wife maybe. A former student of Dan's said that he could be tough and he wasn't afraid to have conversations that many instructors might have shied away from, such as if you should even be in culinary school, right? He was the teacher who would tell you, you don't have any talent here, like you're not good at cooking, maybe you should try something else. But he coupled his advice with sarcasm and wit, making these conversations more palatable and fun. He even had a tip jar to collect any slices of severed fingers from students cutting vegetables. He had a morbid sense of humor. He was a master gardener, and he'd bring his students out on little field trips to collect mushrooms that they could use in their cooking. He accepted everyone. He felt that cooking for someone was a way to express your love for them. And because of that, he often cooked for his wife Nancy, who he loved very dearly, and who he believed loved him. 3 months after his murder, Nancy Brophy was arrested and charged with killing him. She was lucky though. No orange jumpsuit for her. She got to wear a blue one. Now, this past January, Nancy Brophy's defense lawyers argued that her case should be thrown out due to the police and prosecution's mishandling of key evidence. Court documents claim the police failed to preserve DNA samples from shell casings found at the scene. Apparently, they didn't swab the handgun properly, and they had vacuumed up key evidence. Nancy's defense team felt that a 2011 article found in Nancy's internet bookmarks titled 10 Ways to Cover Up a Murder didn't mean that she'd killed her husband. It could have been there for book research, and there were several other innocent bookmarks like 33 super cool popsicles to make this summer. I mean, just because she was looking up how to make popsicles, it doesn't mean she also wasn't looking up ways to kill her husband and get away with it. Murderers like popsicles too, allegedly. Everyone likes popsicles, right? In March of 2020, Nancy's lawyers argued that she should be moved out of the jail and into home detention due to COVID-19. They say that she's at a high risk for contracting the virus since she'll be turning 70 in June and she has pre-existing conditions such as diabetes. And in regards to her husband's murder, Nancy has pleaded not guilty, and her trial is scheduled to start on September 28th, 2020. It's crazy because in these pictures and these videos of Nancy Brophy, she looks like this little innocent, grandmother, like an Angela Lansbury from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. But in my opinion, I think, she definitely killed her husband, unless something new comes out in the trial that we don't know. All signs are pointing to the fact that she did. They'd been facing financial hardship starting in 2018. The fact that she would be the only one really, to benefit financially in a time when she really, really needed this money, plus the presence of her car at the location he was killed, plus the gun parts she ordered online, it paints a pretty clear picture to me, even if you ignore the fact that she wrote an essay about how to kill your husband and get away with it. So I'm looking at Amazon at the books that Nancy wrote, and they seem to be these really tacky, kind of like overdone romance novels. One that she wrote in 2013 is called Girl Most Likely To, and it's literally a picture of like a guy shirtless in jeans, and he's got like a woman's hands on his abs. And then there's another one she wrote in 2017 called The Wrong Seal, and I assume it means Navy SEAL, but it says, Small Towns Hide the Biggest Secrets. Wrong, Never Felt So Right, Book 6. And then we have book 1 of this Wrong Never Felt So Right series called The Wrong Brother. That's awkward. She's got a lot of series, so she spends quite a bit of time writing, I guess. There's one series called Shadow Men. Book 1 is called Hell on the Heart. Then we've got book 4 of the Wrong Never Felt So Right series, The Wrong Husband. The Wrong Hero is book 2. The Wrong Cop is book 3. The Wrong Lover is book 3.5. And it looks like she also wrote a book which appears to be a guide on how to write. And it says, Plotting Your Story Arc, Workbook for Fiction Writers, Plotters, and Pantsers. Pantsers. Don't know what that is. And these are all like $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, so not a super successful writer. But in her Google Books About the Author section, it says Nancy Brophy is an award-winning author whose first published work was a pamphlet for the University of Houston entitled Between Your Navel and Your Knees. The subject matter dealt with the changing mores of sexuality in the 60s and 70s. Much of her career has been focused on nonfiction, with articles published in trade journals and technical writing for HR departments. But her true love was storytelling. Eventually, she wrote a novel, which is still available somewhere under her bed. In 2003, she joined her local chapter of Romance Writers of America and learned the craft of story writing. Since then, she has published both romantic suspense novels and 2 novellas under her name and others. Her stories are about pretty men and strong women, about families that don't always work, and about the joy of finding love and the difficulty of making it stay. It's ironic, that last sentence, the joy of finding love and the difficulty in making it stay. It's an ironic sentence. So a week ago, this article was published on kptv.com, and it says Nancy Brophy has sought to be released from custody due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A judge denied that request Wednesday. Moments ago, Judge Christopher A. Ramres found the presumption strong that the defendant is guilty and therefore denied her release from custody. Court documents outlined evidence in the case, including surveillance video alleged to show Nancy Brophy outside the crime scene and numerous life insurance policies taken out on Daniel Brophy that Nancy Brophy sold to herself. Okay, so remember when I said what she did for a living was writing? Not necessarily what she did for a living, because she wasn't making a lot of money on it. What she did for a living was she worked in insurance. So what appears to be happening here is a lot of these additional life insurance policies that the police found after investigating further were taken out in Daniel Brophy's name, but Nancy Brophy herself took those policies out. Most likely he wasn't even aware of them. So then they go on to talk about the gun that she bought, the Magnum. It was purchased at a gun show by Nancy Brophy in February 2018, and a slide and barrel purchased on eBay around that same time. So detectives suspect that Nancy removed the original slide and barrel from the gun show gun and replaced it with the slide and barrel purchased on eBay. Then she shot her husband. Then she replaced the slide and the barrel she got from eBay with the original slide and barrel that had been in the gun when she bought it from the gun show. It also says that the slide and barrel that were purchased on eBay haven't been recovered yet. Multnomah County District Attorney Rod Underhill wrote in a memorandum filed in the Circuit Court of the state of Oregon. He said she planned and carried out what she believed was the perfect murder, a murder that she believed would free her from the grips of financial despair and enter a life of financial security and adventure. Rod Underhill is his name, right? Rod Underhill. Because Nancy's sitting there in court and she's like, I'm mad at this guy because he's prosecuting me, but damn, his name would be great in a romance novel. Underhill also said that homicide detectives had learned after interviewing the couple's friends that Nancy Brophy had wanted to sell their house and travel. But she was telling her friends she didn't think that her husband would go for it. Like, she didn't think she could convince Dan to sell the house and travel with her. He loved his job. He loved his students. He loved his house. It's this adorable little cottage. He was perfectly happy with his current circumstances. He had a great life. He didn't want to travel the world. He didn't want to seek out adventure and new things because he really liked what he had. It says the couple had been struggling financially for years, falling $6,000 behind in mortgage repayments, while Nancy Brophy paid $16,000 in insurance premiums during 2017. Her self-published romance novels were financial flops as well. After Dan Brophy's death, Nancy Brophy stood to receive around $300,000 in home equity and $1.15 million in insurance payouts, including life insurance and a workers' compensation claim that would have been paid out because Brophy was killed at work. Nancy was an insurance agent and sold herself the policies for which she was the sole beneficiary. Underhill wrote, Dan Brophy was content in his simplistic lifestyle, but Nancy Brophy wanted something more. As Nancy Brophy became more financially desperate and her writing career was floundering, she was left with few options. So this article also shows us some of the things that Nancy wrote online, sort of like a blogging kind of thing. She was on this forum for other writers, I believe female writers, so they would chat a lot, make posts and things, message boards. And she wrote, I live in the beautiful, green, and very wet Northwest, married to a chef whose mantra is, life is a science project. As a result, there are chickens and turkeys in my backyard, a fabulous vegetable garden which also grows tobacco for an insecticide, and a hot meal on the table every night. For those of you who have longed for this, let me caution you. The old adage is true. Be careful what you wish for. When the gods are truly angry, they grant us our wishes. So this woman, Nancy, she had it all, pretty much. The love of a good man who loved his job, who was beloved by the people he worked with. He cooked for her. He did vegetable gardens. They had this adorable, quaint little home. A good life, but she was not happy. And you can't truly be happy for someone else until you're happy with yourself, until you have your stuff together and you feel like you're doing well. You can't really be happy for someone else's success or even someone else's contentment. And I think that's what happened here. She wanted to be a writer, but she wasn't very good at it, right? I mean, I haven't read the books in their totality, so I can't tell you what I think about the plot or the storyline or character development, but I can tell you just in general, the writing is flowery, it's overdone. Not my style of a book that I want to read, at least. So she wasn't successful at that. She was working in insurance, and she sees her husband. Her husband who is completely satisfied and happy with the work that he has chosen to do with his life. And every single day he goes to work excited and ready to do it. He can't wait to see his students and teach them different things and go out hunting for mushrooms. He was completely happy with what he was doing and who he was. And that drove her crazy because she wasn't. So what's going to happen now? She's going to start searching for ways that she can be happy. Let's travel. And I mean, as a writer, I completely get that because I write quite a bit on the side myself. It's sometimes a very good idea when you're having writer's block or you're feeling like you're not creative or no new ideas are coming, you feel stagnant, to leave your area, travel somewhere else. New places, new faces, different cultures, different food, different languages, new smells, new sounds. It will stimulate your creativity in your brain and it allows you to kind of write a little bit. So you do often as a writer want to go someplace else. But that means you get an Airbnb in, a cool place that you've been wanting to go to and you stay there for a week or 2 weeks. It doesn't mean that you just sell your house and leave your life behind and travel around because it's drastic. And she's thinking so drastically at this point. There's no middle ground for her. She's not like, hey, Dan, do you want to take a vacation with me for 2 weeks? And we can, go and sit on a beach and someplace I can be inspired, someplace we've never seen, and if he said no, then fine. He says no, take your vacation from your insurance company that you work at and go on a vacation yourself and do what you need to do to stimulate your creativity so that you can put out a product that you're proud of. But to expect him to just throw his whole life away, his work and his family, his home, to travel with her so that she could focus on writing and, being the famous writer that she wanted to be, it's very selfish. And I do think that she is very selfish. And the way she says, it's not everything that you think it is. Having a nice home, living in a beautiful area, having a husband who is very attentive and cooks for you. It's awful. Just be careful what you wish for. It sounds horrible, Nancy. It just sounds awful. It sounds like a perfectly wonderful and acceptable life. But maybe she was bored. She's writing about women who are in trouble and men who save them. And there's none of that tension in her life, right? Life's not like a book. Life's definitely not like a romance book where there's constant tension and constant fighting and there's always some sort of thing that's blocking you from getting to where you want to be or getting the man you want or getting the woman you want, right? There's just got to be conflict or it's not an interesting story. So she's writing these, hugely dramatic stories about men and women and their lives and their adventures. And she's living a perfectly happy and acceptable life where there is no fights, there's no drama, there's no tension. They get up, they go to work every day, they bring home money. He cooks for her when they get home at night because he loves her and he cooks for people that he loves. It's a way to show that he cares about her. and they're happy and they don't fight. Yeah, they're having some financial troubles, but that's not the kind of tension that you want to see in a romance novel, right? Money problems, you don't see that in romance novels. You see love triangles and jealousy and just resentments that have built up, or it's the dramatic stuff I think she became to think was normal and expected in a relationship as she was getting so involved in these stories she was writing. And as a writer, you do get involved with the stories you're writing. You become connected to the characters, you become connected to the plot and the storyline, and it almost is hard when you finish it because you're like, oh, my friends are gone. Like, I'm done with this. It's a chapter that's behind me now. So I think she was really feeling like stagnant. There's no fights here. We're not arguing. He's not jealous that I'm seeing other guys. There's no love triangle. There's no like a cute man with 12-pack abs trying to come over here and, steal me away from my husband. Life is boring. I need an adventure. I need something new. This person is now standing in my way of being happy. I need to get rid of this person. I think it was really as simple as that. And getting rid of him would allow her to go off and do whatever she wanted. And bonus, she'd have enough money to do so. She'd be able to travel for quite a while with that much money. So that's my opinion of what happened. I definitely do think that she was responsible. Why would she tell the police she was home and then be driving by the Culinary Institute right around the time he was killed? And she probably did this very quickly, and that's why there's no signs of struggle, because she was his wife. She'd been there many times. She knew exactly when he'd be getting there. She knew exactly where he'd be. She probably was very familiar with his routine when he got to work. And she came in, shot him, and left quickly. I mean, she would have had to have done this in like 6-7 minutes. And that was it. And she probably did think it was the perfect crime, She would have an alibi, saying she was home. She was thoroughly playing the part of the distressed and, sad widow afterwards. And the whole gun thing, she had Googled ghost gun, how to create a ghost gun. Stop Googling this stuff because your internet history is always going to be searched. I mean, in the age of technology and computers, do these criminals really think that their Google search history isn't going to be of interest to the police after somebody close to you dies? So, she screwed up there and she bought the pieces on Etsy. So, there's also going to be a history of that purchase, even though they can't find the replacement parts because she got rid of them because they were used in a crime and she didn't want them being found. Just my opinion. Don't come for me, Nancy Brophy. And Nancy's trying to, get released now. They want to rent her like this little cottage, and then she'll have like an ankle bracelet, to be monitored so she can't leave. And the judge was like, no, man, she's fine in jail. Okay, she's in a jail cell. She literally remains 6 feet away from people all the time without a choice. So I think we're going to be okay here. And it's one of those things like, yeah, does it probably suck to be in jail during a worldwide pandemic? Does it suck to be in jail at any time? Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's awful and boring and nerve-wracking and just makes you anxious all the time. But then you don't kill people and you will not be in jail. She could have been home still in her cute little cottage with her attentive, doting husband writing awful romance novels instead of sitting behind bars because she thought she was smart enough to get away with a murder because she'd written about it in fake stories. Let me know what you guys think about this one. It's kind of crazy. It's just insane. I'm really looking forward to listening or watching her trial or getting some updates from that because I want to know what she has to say for herself. I mean, she's pled not guilty, so she's clearly trying to make it seem as if she has nothing to do with this. She's not responsible for it at all. So hopefully the police have more like concrete evidence because I do believe that what they have now is circumstantial. There's no like DNA to place her at the scene. It's just circumstantial evidence. Hopefully they can find something else. Hopefully they can find something that will stick because this woman, yeah, she's like 70 years old. Is she going to hurt anybody else? Probably not. But once again, it really doesn't matter to me if you're going to go out and hurt someone else. What matters to me is that you pay the price for the crime that you committed, for the life that you took. It's not fair to take a life and then to go on and live yours. That's my opinion. All right, guys, let me know what you think about this one. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you are new to this channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to watch more, if you want to just keep binging these videos, there should be another video popping up somewhere on the screen here. I don't know. I'm not good with technology. I'm going to try to make it pop up on the screen, but it may be now or it may be later. It's going to be popping up at some point and it will give you the option to subscribe and or watch another video. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do both. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to check out Magellan TV if you haven't already. An amazing sponsor, an amazing service. I wholeheartedly support it and love it, and I wouldn't recommend it to you if I didn't. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and stay home. And I'll see you soon.